Okay, so I'll just say a little. Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatade Shatarne Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yeah, so this all starts, of course, where it all began, Sri Vrindavan Dham. So Vrindavan is Krishna's birthplace and his pastime place of his early childhood up to his beginning of his youth. So Krishna was living there in Vrindavan with his older brother Balaram and his mother Yashoda Nanda Maharaj. And another person there was Rohini. So Rohini was Balaram's mother, but she was actually the wife of Vasudev, who was the husband also of Devaki, who was Krishna's first parents. But because Vasudev and Devaki had been imprisoned by Kamsa, so then Rohini was just kind of like there without her husband. So he told her, you should go to Braj and stay in Vrindavan under the protection of Nanda Maharaj, because they were very close friends. So he asked Nanda Maharaj, while I'm in jail, please take care of my wife Rohini and just give her protection. So Rohini was living there, and she was, very close to Mother Yashoda. And when Krishna was performing his childhood pastimes, Rohini was witnessing everything. In fact, Rohini was like always in the house. She lived in the house. She was like the head cook, and she was in charge of the kitchen. And so whenever cooking was being done for Krishna, Rohini would be on the scene, cooking right there, side by side, shoulder to shoulder with Srimati Radharani and her friends when they would go over in the morning and cook for Krishna. And she just watched Krishna grow up. She heard about all the stories, right? She was there when Putana came. She was there when, the cart got kicked over, and she heard about all the adventures in the forest. And she was there when Krishna was dancing on the hoods of Kaliya. And of course, everybody in Vrindavan is very acquainted with, at least with the rumor of Radha and Krishna's relationship. So, and even though that relationship is kind of a forbidden relationship, but they all silently support it, especially Mother Yashoda, Rohini, and all of Krishna's side of the family, and obviously also Srimati Radharani's parents and so forth. So, so they're all growing up together in Vrindavan, and Krishna is meeting with the gopis on a daily basis, at least once a day, usually at noon, and then again at night. As Maharaj was describing, he would sneak out, jump out the window or whatever, somehow or other manage to get out of the house and go and meet the gopis and have all their pastimes there and come back in the morning. So this was going on. And then one ominous day, then someone came from Mathura by the name of Akrura. And so Akrura, he summoned Krishna and Balaram to go to Mathura to take part in the wrestling match that Kamsa, the evil king Kamsa, had arranged with between his best wrestlers, these huge guys, Chanra and Mushtika, and Krishna and Balaram. And Kamsa's plan was that he wanted to kill Krishna and Balaram, and he was thinking, he had all these different, so he had a whole elephant there, Kuvalayapita, thinking that this killer elephant would kill them, and if that didn't work, then he gets into the wrestling, and then the wrestlers are going to kill him. If that didn't work, then Kamsa himself was going to kill him. So he had all these strategies for killing Krishna, but it was the reverse. Actually, Krishna killed the elephant Kuvalayapita, Krishna and Balaram killed those wrestlers, Chanaka and Mustika, and when Kamsa came to try to, Kamsa was afraid at that point, and Krishna just jumped up onto the grandstands and pulled Kamsa down and punched him to death. So Kamsa ended up getting killed. So that was a good thing, because Kamsa was a huge demon. He'd been terrorizing the universe. He ousted his father from the throne. He threw his sister into jail along with his brother-in-law. He had arranged for the murder of so many children and just so many atrocities that Kamsa was doing. So that was like the end of Kamsa's reign of terror. And so now Vasudeva and Devaki could be released from prison. And so now that Vasudev's out of prison, then the word was sent to Rohini that now you can go back to Mathura and you can stay with your husband and everything is peaceful. So Rohini went and she was reunited with Vasudeva. And so now Krishna and Balaram, so they killed Kamsa, but Kamsa was the first of demons. And there was so many more demons that were in the world, that had assembled in that area, that Krishna knew he had to dispatch, basically, to other worlds. Because that's why he came, right? Parichanaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskritam. So he came to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, to kill these demons. That was a reason for his descent, and that's why the demigods had gone to appeal to Lord Vishnu on the ocean of milk on the Swetadweep planet within this universe, because there were just too many demons, and these demons had taken birth in royal families, and they had just inherited positions of rule and power and control, and they were, using those positions of power for their nefarious activities, just so many atrocities. So the demigods were afraid that these demons were getting too powerful. They're going to kill the demigods, they're going to take over the heavens, and it's going to be terrorists running the universe. So they went to Lord Vishnu and they said, please, you need to come, we need help, please come and relieve the burden of the earth. So Lord Vishnu said, don't worry, I'm going to come, but not as myself. I'm going to come in my actual original form of Krishna, who I have expanded from, who is the source of all incarnations, who is the creator, annihilator, maintainer. He's the cause of all causes. And he's going to come, and he's going to take care of the situation. So then Krishna took birth to kill these demons. So this was part of his mission. And Krishna was very responsible. As much as he loved being in Vrindavan, as much as he was feeling separation from his parents and from his cowherd friends and from the gopis and all the Brajbasis, the cows and everyone, he was like, I have work to do. So sometimes a man's just got to go to work. And so Krishna went to work, and he was killing demons, and there were so many battles. So then they're living in Mathura, and this Jarasandha kept attacking, this particular demon Jarasandha. He kept attacking, and he was really determined to try to kill Krishna, and he kept coming with his armies and getting defeated and coming again and getting defeated. It happened like 16 times. And then there was this other demon named Kaliyavana, who is like this barbarian, like Viking person, and he came. And so he was attacking Mathura. And so Krishna was trying to defend Mathura from Kaliyavana, but at the same time he's thinking Jarasandha is going to attack at the same time. So he's like, well, this is going to be, and there was also like a whole complexity there in that Kaliyavana had gotten a benediction from Gargamuni that he couldn't be killed by any Yadu, any member of the Yadu dynasty. So that meant Krishna and his whole family. So not Krishna nor Balaram nor anyone in the whole family could kill Kaliyavana. So that was complicated. And Krishna's saying, okay, I have to deal with this person and make a whole arrangement. That's a whole other pastime. But then Jarasandha, while I'm dealing with him, if Jarasandha comes and attacks Mathura, all of my family members are going to be in danger. So I need to make an arrangement to protect them in case that happens. So then what he did was, he just, by his transcendental, inconceivable powers, he manifested his transcendental abode of Dwarka on this planet, which was an island, in the ocean, and it was very safe because it had this huge moat of ocean, around it. And then in the middle of the night, so everyone in Mathura, all of his family members, they went to sleep that night as usual. And then Krishna, by his Yogamaya potency, he transferred all the Yadu dynasty over to Dwarka. So they went to sleep in Mathura, they woke up in Dwarka, they didn't know what happened, but they were safe. So then now Krishna's in Dwarka, and Rohini's there, and Balaram's there, and Subhadra's. So yeah, Subhadra also, she was born there in Dwarka, and yeah. So then they were all growing up there. I mean, Subhadra was growing. She was the little sister, and they were all living there in Dwarka. And Krishna was the king of Dwarka now, and then. All of these beautiful princesses started hearing about Krishna and how wonderful he was, the king of Dwarka. Wow, how powerful he is and how beautiful he is, and they all wanted to marry him. And so, bit by bit, Krishna got married again and again and again, 16,108 times to different queens who were all of his eternal consorts. And so there they are. So they're very well established in Dwarka. But Krishna's thinking about Vrindavan, right? And he can't get the gopis out of his mind, especially Srimati Radharani. And so, at night when he's sleeping there in Dwarka, he's lying in bed with, his queen Rukmini or his queen Satyabhama, or, all, in different palaces, all simultaneously expanded himself to be with all of them. And then in each one of those beds, he's dreaming, and he's just thinking about Srimati Radharani and the gopis and Vrindavan and the Vrajvasis. And sometimes in his sleep he's crying and he's saying Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And sometimes, he's like speaking in his sleep, and he's speaking, sweet words and appreciations for their love and their pastimes, and so the queens are hearing this because they wake up, right? Krishna's like yelling and talking in his sleep, so they wake up, and so from time to time, if not every night, they're hearing something about Vrindavan and these gopis, and so they become very curious. So then one day, all the queens get together and they start talking about Krishna and Krishna's obsession with these gopis, and especially Srimati Radharani. And they've never been to Vrindavan. They don't know they've never met Srimati Radharani, so they're like very curious, like, who is this girl that Krishna can't get out of his mind? And so they go to Mother Rohini, because Rohini was there. They know that she was there in Vrindavan, and she witnessed all of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And so they kind of like, whisked her off to a secluded place, and they kind of cornered her and said, all right, Rohini, please, we're dying to know about Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, especially his pastimes with the gopis and Srimati Radharani. Please tell us. So then Rohini's like, just the thought of speaking about Vrindavan is very enlivening for her, because, she relished all those pastimes immensely. It was a big piece of her life, of her, so ecstatic watching Krishna grow up and all these things. And so she said, well, I'll tell you, but Krishna can't hear this. If Krishna hears these pastimes, you're going to lose him. Basically, if he hears some talk about Srimati Radharani, if he even hears the mention of her name, he's just going to run to Vrindavan, and you're never going to see him again. So then they said, okay, we'll have someone stand guard. But of course, none of the queens wanted to stand guard because they all wanted to hear. And then, Subhadra said, well, he's my brother, and my relationship with him is a little bit different, so I'll go and stand by the door. So it was decided. So then little Subhadra, she goes out, and they close the door, and she's standing outside the door, and she's just guarding it to make sure that Krishna doesn't come. So then Rohini's telling all the Vrindavan pastimes, Krishna this, and Krishna did that, and Krishna and the gopis, and so Subhadra, she hasn't heard these stories before, so she's also interested. So while she's standing outside the door, she's listening, right? She's got her ear to the crack of the door and the door casing, and she's hearing the pastimes. She's like catching little bits and pieces of it, so much enough that she's becoming ecstatic, right? So she's hearing, and her eyes are getting, like, if you're really intensely listening about something that's like somebody's just spilling some really juicy tea or something, some really nice hot gossip, your eyes get, really? Eyes get big. So Subhadra's hearing all this brunch tea. She's hearing all this, the stories of Vrindavan and Krishna's relationships there with different devotees, and her eyes are getting all big, like, really? My brother did those things? And so her eyes get all big, and then her ecstasy just keeps increasing the more she's hearing, and her smile gets really big. It goes all the way, like, to her ears, and then she starts, hairs of her body are standing on end. She starts trembling, and after a while it gets so intense that her arms just go zip inside her body. Sometimes that happens. That's an extreme symptom of ecstasy, is when the limbs go inside the body. So, and then she just got stunned in that form. She was just like stunned there. And then she couldn't speak, she couldn't move, she couldn't blink her eyes, she couldn't do anything. So she's standing there, and she's supposed to be standing guard. So now she's not even able to guard properly, because she's basically, disabled there in a state of ecstatic stunnedness. And then Balaram comes along. So Balaram happens to be walking by that place, and then he sees his sister like that, and he's like, Subhadra, what happened? Because she can't say anything, because she's like stunned, speechless. So then he sees that, he hears some muffled voices from behind the door. So then he goes and he listens, and he's hearing Krishna's pastimes, and of course Balaram was there. So this is like even more ecstatic for him, because it's not just, story that he's never heard before, but it's also his stories, and his ecstatic pastimes with Krishna. So as soon as he hears that, same thing. His eyes get all big, and his smile gets all huge, and his hands go into his arms, and his legs go into his torso, and he's just standing there like that, all stunned. So the two of them, like, they're stunned like blocks of wood in front of the door. And then who should come along next is Krishna. So Krishna comes along, and he sees them like that, and of course he knows everything, but he sees them, and then he goes and listens, and he starts hearing the same pastimes, and he gets even more ecstatic. His eyes get all big, and his smile gets huge, and his hands go into his arms, and his legs go into his torso, and then there's the three of them standing there in the forms that we know as Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. Right? So that's their first manifestation of these transcendental forms of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, standing next to each other outside the door. Then who should come along but Narad Muni Bhajai Vina. So Narad Muni enters on the scene, and he's very surprised. But as soon as Narada Muni sees them, because Narada Muni's mood is not Vrindavan mood, so when Narada Muni sees them, then it kind of like causes some, interference of bhavas, and it makes them come back to their normal, human forms as Krishna, Balaram, Subhadra, and they, come back to their external senses, and their eyes blink, and they're looking a little confused, and like, oh, how did you get here? And Subhadra's like, uh-oh, and Narada's looking at them with a huge smile on his face, and then Krishna's like, Narada, you didn't see anything. And then Narada Muni's like, I saw something. And then, Krishna says, Narada, I want you to not tell anybody that you saw us in these forms, and in exchange for that promise, I'll give you a benediction. So then Narada Muni is very intelligent, right? So he says that, Krishna, okay, I won't say a word. I'll keep my lips sealed about this, but I've seen this form, and I understand that any form that you take is an eternal form. So why would you want to hide a form which is actually your eternal form? So the benediction I ask is that this form be eternally worshipped, and that it be manifested to the whole world. So Krishna was like, all right, so be it. Tatastu. Of course, that was also, Krishna's desire. So be it. So then what happens is that there's a king named Indradumna. So this king Indradumna, he's a great devotee of Krishna, and he got to know, because he's a king and he sends out his messengers and spies and people all over the land. So he gets to know that there is a deity, a very beautiful deity of Krishna, named Nilamadeva, and this deity is being worshipped, but he doesn't know where. Somehow this deity is is very intriguing to him, and he wants to see the deity. So he sends out one of his ministers to what's his minister's name? Anyways, he sends out one of his ministers to find this. And this is a long story. I'll make it very brief. But the minister is looking all over the land to try to find this deity, and then finally he comes to this village that's at the foot of a mountain, and it's a village of like people that keep pigs, like pig herders, pig herder village.
Called Shabaras.
Shabaras, yeah. So he comes to this village, and he just needs to stay someplace the night. So he knocks on the door, and they're like, "Sure, you're a Brahmin, come in." And so he stays there for some time, and then he ends up actually falling in love with the pig herder's daughter, and he ends up getting married to that girl, right? And so then they're living there now, and he, kind of like love is blinding, so he kind of forgot all about his mission for some time while he's, in the throes of a new relationship with this beautiful girl. And so they're living there, and then he notices that her father, who's the head of the pig herders, he goes out every morning. He just disappears every morning, and he goes somewhere, and he comes back smelling so wonderful. He comes back smelling like amazing fragrances, and he's so happy, he's like radiant. So after some time he asks his wife, the man's daughter, he says, "Where does your father go? Like every single day he goes out and he comes back after some hours, and he just looks so different, he looks so radiant, and he smells so good." And she said, "Oh, he goes to every day to worship. He goes up to the top, the hill, in the forest, in the jungle, and he worships the deity of Nilamadeva." And so when the minister hears that, he's like, "Oh, Nilamadeva, that's like why I'm here. This is like the mission that I'm on, and this is like a great thing. The king's going to be so happy. The king's going to be like in bliss. He's going to be so pleased with me when I tell him that I know where Nilamadeva is. Please, take me to this deity." So then his wife says, "Oh, I can't do that. This is very secretive. My father doesn't let anybody go there. It's only his thing, and he's very protective." And but she goes and she sweet talks her father, and she's a daddy's girl, so daddy wants to please his daughter. So the father, not like very reluctantly, he says, "Okay, I'll take the both of you, but you need to go blindfolded, because you can't see the way, because I don't want you to ever go back there again. You're going to see the deity once, and that's it." So, but this girl was very smart, so she gave her husband a little bag full of mustard seeds, and she didn't go. The minister went by herself. The girl didn't go. So he went by himself, but she gave him these mustard seeds. So he dropped the mustard seeds along the way. It's kind of like Hansel and Gretel's story, dropping the breadcrumbs and stuff. But mustard seeds was smart, because if it was breadcrumbs, the birds would have come and eaten them. They would have been gone. But mustard seeds, they went into the ground, and then they got planted, and then after some, a couple of weeks, they germinate and they made little sprouts. So then after that, the minister, he went and he followed the line of mustard plants, and which took him right to the deity of Nilamadeva. So he saw the deity of Nilamadeva, and he paid his obeisances with tears in his eyes. He was like, "Oh my God, this is the most beautiful deity I've ever seen in my life. I'm going to bring the king here. This deity because the pig farmer, he wasn't able to worship him so opulently, right? He was just kind of getting some leaves and fruits from the forest and offering there, some water and things. He's like, this deity should be in a temple, not just under a tree in the jungle. Should be getting offered, plates of gold and silver, and fine cooked foods, and served with opulence and pomp." And so he went straight back to the king, and he told King Indra, "I found Nilamadeva. I found him. Come, let's go." So he went there. King went there. They went to the place, and then they got there, and the deity was gone. It was just not there. And then the king got very angry. He's like, "That Shabara, that pig farmer, he's hidden him. I'm going to find him, and I'm going to, make him tell me where the deity is. I'm going to threaten him and things." So it got really uncomfortable there. And then they found the Shabara, and they interrogated him, and he was also crying. He said, "No, I didn't do anything. The deity disappeared. I'm as heartbroken as all of you. In fact, you're blaming me, I'm blaming you." And then they started fighting with each other. "It's your fault that he's gone. No, it's your fault that he's gone. Everything was fine till you came on the scene." And anyway, so then then all of a sudden there was like a thunderous voice from the sky, and everybody went deathly silent. And there was a voice, and it said that you won't see me again in this form, but I will appear in another form in Puri. And then he instructed the king to go to Puri and that go to the beach by the ocean, because Jagannath Puri is on the ocean. So stand on the beach, and there will be 3 logs of wood that will come floating down. They'll get washed up on shore by the ocean waves. And those 3 you get those 3 logs, and you get a sculptor to sculpt my deity forms, like that. And he didn't say much more. So then King Indradyumna, he was a little disappointed that he didn't get to see Nilamadeva, and that he would never see that actual form of Nilamadeva, but he was hopeful that, okay, I'm going to see the Lord in some form. So let me follow the Lord's instructions. And he was, just going on a wing and a prayer that this voice was actually, authoritative, and it was really going to happen. And so he went there. And sure enough, he said, I will appear again with my brother and sister in the form of these logs. He said like that. So then he went down there, and he's on the beach, and he's praying and reciting all of his, mantras and prayers. And then, lo and behold, the logs come. These 3 logs come, and they're floating like that, and a big wave comes and throws them up on the shore. And then they're very heavy, right? Like hardly anyone can budge them. Finally, they get them back to the place, the palace, and now they need to find the sculptor. So then he puts a announcement out that any sculptor, please come. I need to find a sculptor who can carve deities out of these logs. So all these sculptors are coming to think, if I can get commissioned by the king, that's going to be good money for me. I'm going to be famous. This is going to be wonderful. So they were coming from all over, and they were all trying, but everyone was trying to carve the logs, and they couldn't make a scratch in the log with their hammers and their chisels, and the most expert craftsmen in the land. And they're all just going home with their broken tools after trying to carve those logs. Then after a while, this very old man, skinny old man comes, and he's got his little tool bag, his burlap sack around his shoulder, and he comes on the scene, and the king looks at him. He's like, we had these huge, young, burly, sculptors come, and they couldn't do it. What are you going to do? But he's like, anyways, I'm desperate. Please try. So then the sculptor said, well, the thing is, you're not going to watch me do this. If I'm going to do this, you have to give me complete privacy. So Indradyumna Maharaj, the king, was, he was willing to do anything at this point. So he said, fine. So the sculptor said, put me in a room, close the door, no one can come in. I'm going to work for 21 days. And at that time, nobody can enter or see anything that I'm doing. And if anybody opens the doors and sees within that time, that's it. I'm done, I'm leaving. So then Maharaj Indradyumna said, okay, fine, I accept your conditions, please, go ahead. So then closed the door, but the king was standing outside the door all the time, and he was listening to the chink, 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 chink of the carving going on all day long, day after day. And as the days passed, he was getting more and more eager to see the deity. And then it got to a point after the 14th day, after 2 weeks, he couldn't stand it anymore, and he's like, I just have to see. Oh, what happened was he was listening, and then at some point in the day, the ching, ching, ching stopped, and there was a long silence. And he's like, oh, what's happened? Maybe he finished early. Maybe the old man, had a heart attack and died. Maybe, he just didn't know why it stopped, and he was really anxious, and so he couldn't stand it anymore. And he just burst in through the doors, and then the craftsman looked at him and just kind of scowled at him and took his tools and left. And then the king, and they say that craftsman was either Vishvakarma, the architect of the demigods, or the Lord himself, who had appeared in that form to do this service. Because who can carve the form of the Lord? Right? No one else could. Anyways, Indradyumna Swami, so he goes in, not Swami, Indradyumna Maharaj goes in, and he sees, so now the craftsman, the sculpture took off, and the forms are just very rudimentary. It's the arms are there, but there's no hands. The bodies are there, but there's no legs or feet. And the faces are there, but they're just kind of like chunky. And there's no features. You know, the nose is just kind of like a weird lump or something. And there's no ears or anything. And he's just like, oh no, what have I done? You know, the only person on the planet practically who was able to carve these deities, and I just totally lost control. And now I'm never going to see the Lord. I'm never going to see Nilamadeva in the form that he wanted to manifest to me. And he's lamenting, and he's falling down on his knees and paying his obeisances and crying. And then he hears a voice, another thunderous voice that says, don't worry. Actually, this is all my desire. And these three forms are my eternal forms. And these are the forms that I wanted to manifest myself to you. So take these forms, and you get someone to paint them and install them in the altar, and they will be worshipped. So that was Narada Muni's first benediction coming to be, right? That these forms, as he saw Krishna, Balaram, and Subhadra outside that door where Rohini was reciting Vraj Katha, and he saw them like that they would be worshipped eternally. So to this day, those forms are being worshipped in Jagannath Puri, and not only that, but they've expanded themselves into so many different forms to be worshipped all over the world, eternally. But then there was another part of of Narada Muni's request, and that is that everybody in the world will see them, right? So not everybody in the world is going to go to the temple, and especially the temple in Puri. Like most of the world's not even allowed in there. Like I'm not allowed in there. Like only people of Indian origin are allowed in there. So so Narada Muni, but Narada Muni wanted everyone. So we can thank Narada Muni for being able to get a darshan of Lord Jagannath, because Krishna fulfills the requests of his devotees. So then, so now we're going to hear how that happened. So let me just make sure I didn't skip anything here. So this is related to the internal significance of how Ratha Yatra came to be a thing. Okay, so remember that the reason that Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra manifest in those forms is because they were hearing about Vrindavan, and they were feeling separation from Vraj. Right? They were feeling separation from the Vrajavasis, from Krishna was feeling separation from Srimati Radharani. And those forms are their forms that they exhibit when they're in the intense ecstasy of separation. And so, going back to Krishna in Dwarka. So Krishna's in Dwarka, and he's feeling separation from Vraj. And he's also conscious and considerate of the fact that the Vrajavasis are also feeling intense separation from him, right? Just as he's missing Srimati Radharani is missing him. All the Vrajavasis are just like devastated. You know, when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, they're barely able to function. In fact, they're not functioning. Like it's described by the Acharyas that when Krishna leaves Vrindavan, they can't milk the cows. The women can't, the men can't milk the cows, the women can't churn the butter, the gopas aren't taking the cows out to pasture, the servants aren't cleaning the houses, like nothing is going on. Everything is just, the crops in the field are just like producing fruit and grains and just rotting in the field because nobody can do anything. They're just like devastated. They're just in this, like, they're just sunk in the deep, dark depression of separation from Krishna. Of course, it's ecstasy, but it's a different flavor. It manifests like that. So, to try to console the Vrajavasis, see, Krishna can't go. Krishna can't go because if he goes to Vrindavan, then, he's not going to be able to leave because he's very attached to Vrindavan, and being apart from them was already difficult enough. To go and leave again would be impossible. And he still has demons to kill, right? He's not done with his work. So he has to stay, he has to finish that work, and but it's not that time yet. So he's thinking, I don't want the Vrajavasis to die in separation from me, so let me send someone. So first he sends Uddhava. Uddhava is his prime minister, his right-hand man, one of his best friends in Dwarka. So he sends Uddhava, and Uddhava goes there with a whole message, with a love letter from Krishna to the gopis, and with sweet words from Krishna to Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, and he meets with all the Vrajavasis, and he spends quite some time there. He spends at least a month, maybe 2 or 3 months there in Vrindavan, just talking with them, meeting with them, sharing news about Krishna, and and witnessing their ecstatic love and separation. And then he tells them, so before he goes, they tell him, please bring Krishna back, please bring Krishna back. We just can't live without him. Tell him how much we're suffering. Tell him how painful his condition is. Tell him how his mother is dying. Tell him how Radharani is just like, you know, she can't eat, she can't walk. She's just like a skeleton lying on the ground, trembling. And he needs to come back and save her life. How can he just leave her? So Uddhava says, yes, I'm going to go. I'm going to tell him, and he's going to come back. I'll bring him back. Don't you worry. So Uddhava goes back, but then Krishna, he's like, I'm sorry, I can't go. But then some time passes, and he again becomes thinking about the Vrajavasis and their condition, and then he sends Balaram. So then Balaram goes, and he also goes with the message, and he talks to the gopis, and he tells them, you know, don't worry. Okay, you don't see Krishna, but, you know, Krishna's everywhere. He's all pervasive. He's in everything by all of his energies. He's in your hearts. You just close your eyes and think of Krishna, and he'll be there with you. It's non-different. Your thoughts of Krishna are non-different from Krishna. It's all going to be good. You're going to stop crying. Your happiness is going to come back. Everything, color is going to come back to your life and everything. And so, you know, hearing Balaram's words was, I mean, they appreciated what he said, and they thought it was sweet, and it was, you know, it was all very nice and everything. But, you know, it didn't quite do the job because they were like, no, we need Krishna. Anyway, so Balaram also went back, not being able to fulfill his mission. He went back to Dwarka, and he told Krishna, look, Krishna, you just need to go. But Krishna did not go. Okay, so then fast forward, there was a specific event that happened. There was a solar eclipse. So eclipses are, even lunar eclipse or solar eclipse, they're considered to be inauspicious. They're considered to be a time when, you know, like the sun, what's happening actually is that the sun is being attacked by a demoniac planet called Rahu. And Rahu is trying to swallow the sun. And there's like, it's like a whole confrontation and conflict, and there's a lot of just dark energy that is prominent at that time, and that affects everybody, including us. So that's why when eclipses happen, it's not good to look at them. Actually, we should better like stay in a place indoors and chant Hare Krishna, you know, and just try to maintain as pure an environment as we can to counteract the inauspicious influence of the eclipse. So that's one thing. You can just stay in the temple and chant Hare Krishna. Another thing is that you can go to a holy river and stay immersed in the holy river there, or you can go to a holy place of pilgrimage. So that's what all the residents of Dwarka did during this eclipse, is they went to Kurukshetra, because Kurukshetra was a holy place. So they all went to Kurukshetra, and it wasn't only them, but the residents of Vrindavan also went to Kurukshetra. Now, I don't know if they coordinated this or if it was just like so-called chance that they both decided to go to the holy place of Kurukshetra for this eclipse, but somehow or other they met. So Krishna was there, Balaram was there, Subhadra, Ramina, everybody, all Krishna's whole dynasty, the whole Yadu dynasty, all their armies, the soldiers, the guards, the extended family, the friends, all the residents of Dwarka were there. Yeah?
I was just wondering, why was Kurukshetra a holy place?
Because it was a place where back in the day Maharaj Kuru had done like many sacrifices. He'd done like huge sacrifices there, so the whole place became sanctified by that sacrificial process.
Thank you.
Yeah. So they're all there, and then the Brajavasis also came, like everyone, right? Nanda Maharaj, Mother Yashoda, Krishna. Krishna was in Dwarka. He came from that side. The cowherd men, the cowherd women, the gopas, the gopis, the everybody. So all the Brajavasis came. So they were there now. And so it was a very interesting meeting, because Krishna was there, and Radharani was also there. All the gopis were there, and they saw Krishna. And they were like, oh my God, it's Krishna. But then it was like, it was frustrating. And they even met with Krishna. Like in the beginning, Krishna was there surrounded by all of his queens in the beginning. And they were all talking and meeting each other, and they were talking to the other, they were talking to Mother Yashoda, and they were talking to residents of Vrindavan, and the whole Q&A was going on. And then Krishna, he managed to find some time to slip away, right? He kind of like slipped away when no one was looking, when they were engaged in their own conversations. And he arranged to meet the gopis off, a little bit in some secluded area of Kurukshetra. And so Krishna met with the gopis, and he was talking with them. and he was saying some sweet words, and he was trying to console them, and he was trying to like interact with them in ways similar to the ways that he would, interact with them in Vrindavan with sweet words and embraces and so forth. But the gopis were just like, they're just like, okay, Krishna's here and we're here, but it's just not the same, because Krishna's like, we want to see Krishna in Vrindavan. We don't want to see him here with his helmet on his head and his all these, like armor and things and shoes. Like, Krishna doesn't wear shoes, just kick those things off. And like the background music, it shouldn't be the sound of like horses clomping with their horseshoes on the ground. It shouldn't be like soldiers, armed guards around. Like, this is just all wrong. And this is just not, it's like you're the same Krishna and we're the same gopis, but the place is just all wrong. And so the feelings, like places are significant. And so, when we go to a particular place, then it brings up certain feelings, right? The sights, the sounds, the smells, all those things like enter into our different faculties and senses, and they bring up emotions, right? They can bring up very powerful emotions if we had like very intense experiences in those places, right? Whether good or bad. So the place was just not the right place. And so, yeah, the gopis, they conveyed their frustration, and Krishna also, he was feeling it. Anyways, so they tried to interact, but it wasn't quite what they would like it to be. And what happened was, it just made everything worse. It just made Krishna miss Vrindavan more, because then he realized that it wasn't just that I need to be with the gopis, and gopis weren't just that I need to be with Krishna, but no, we need to be in Vrindavan. And so the separation from Braj became so intense after that meeting in Kurukshetra that it was like practically overwhelming. And so when the eclipse was over, then they parted their ways, and Krishna and Balaram and all the yadis went back to Dwarka, and Srimati Radharani and her friends and the Gopas and all the Brajavasis went back to Braj. And but now it was just really bad. It was just like Krishna needs to come to Vrindavan. That was like the only thing. And the gopis, at that point, they were barely even alive. Their life breath was barely even circulating, within their bodies. And the only thing that was keeping them alive was 3 words that Krishna said when a crow was taking him away, way back when, many, many decades ago, actually, taking him to that wrestling match with Kamsa. 3 words, Krishna turned around and said, I will return. And that was the only thing that Krishna promised. He will return. He hasn't returned yet, year after year, but he will return. One day he will return. And we don't want him to return and find us dead, because that's going to make him unhappy. So we have to somehow or other maintain our lives so that when he does return, not if, but when he does return, then we'll be alive and we'll be able to receive him, and he'll be happy in Vrindavan once again. So Krishna, he's also thinking like, I just need to finish this work. So then he really buckled down. He's like, I just need to kill these last remaining demons. And so he did that. And then the final demon was Dantavakra. So Dantavakra was one of the incarnations of Jai and Vijay, and he was the last one that needed to get killed. So Krishna killed him, and the place where he killed him was very near, it's just by the gates of Mathura, which is not far from Vraj. So everybody knew that this was the last demon, and everybody knew that Krishna was hankering to go to Vrindavan, and that after this demon was killed, things were going to change. So as soon as Dantavakra was killed, then Krishna's mind, what happened was, Krishna's, like Uddhava and Narada and Balaram and Subhadra, they all went to that place because they knew something is going to happen, and we want to be there to witness this event. So as soon as he killed Dantavakra, Krishna was like, yes. In his mind, he's like, now I'm going to Vrindavan. His mind just turned to Vrindavan and turned to Srimati Radharani. And as soon as that thought came to his mind, like, now I'm going back to Vrindavan, now I'm going to be reunited with Srimati Radharani, he fainted. Okay, so now Krishna's lying there on the ground, and then Narada and Uddhava and Balaram and Subhadra arrive on the scene. And so Uddhava says, all right, Narada, you get your Veena, you go there by Krishna, and you just play the veena and sing songs about Vraj Leela. Sing songs about, you know, Krishna and Radharani and their pastimes and the beauty of Vraj and, you know, all these things. And Krishna, that sound's going to go in Krishna's ear and it's going to revive him. So at first he was thinking, okay, that'll definitely revive Krishna. But then Uddhava said, no, wait, we can't do that, because as soon as Krishna comes to consciousness, he's just going to run to Vrindavan, and he's going to see the Vrajvasis. He's going to, not just the Vrajvasis, but the whole landscape of Vraj. Like, Vraj was like a ghost town. You know, I mean, the people were there, but they were practically dead. The houses were run down. There were cobwebs everywhere. Everyone was skinny because they weren't even cooking and eating. And the pastures were just, you know, like left, and the cows even were just like, you know, just lying there, not even eating grass. And so Uddhava was thinking, if Krishna goes to Vraj and he sees the state of Vraj as it is, he's going to be so sad. And we don't want Krishna to be sad, right? Devotees are all about making Krishna happy. We want to please Krishna. We want to bring joy to Krishna. So what we have to do is, someone has to go ahead, right? Someone, before Krishna goes, someone has to run ahead and announce, right? Just like announce to all the Vrajvasis that Krishna's coming, and everybody needs to just brighten up and get dressed up and, you know, look beautiful and fix things up and, you know, just do a makeover on Vraj, so that when Krishna comes, it's going to be just like old times and everything's going to be nice and Krishna's going to be happy. So then they're like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. Who's going to go? So then everybody looks at Uddhava, and Uddhava's like, I can't go. I went before, and I promised them that Krishna was going to come. I said he was going to come. I was going to bring him back soon, and so many years have passed, and he hasn't come back. He hasn't come back. No one's going to believe me. They're just going to be like, Uddhava, you told us that before, and you cheated us. You just cheated us. You lied to us that you were going to bring Krishna back, and you're just lying to us again. Get out of here. So it was like, they're never going to believe me. So then Narada's like, how about you, Balaram? You know, you're Krishna's brother. You're the older brother. You always protected him in Vraj. People looked up to you. Balaram's like, no, I'm in the same boat as Uddhava. You know, I also tried I also promised them that I would try to get Krishna to come back. And they're not going to believe me either. They don't care what my relationship with Krishna is. They're just not going to believe me. So then they're like, oh, who's going to go? And then little Subhadra, she's like, well, you know, I've never even met them. So they don't have any reason not to believe me. And also, you know, I'm a girl. So everybody knows that men lie. You know, everybody, but girls are different. You know, girls are simple, pure-hearted. I'm going to say something. They're going to believe me. Don't you worry. So I'll go. And then everybody's like, all right, that's a great idea. Shivaji, you go. So then they're like, okay, Narada, you're going to get your veena and go and sing the Vraj bhajans there for Krishna. But then Balaram's like, wait a minute. Krishna's going to be like totally delirious. You know, even when he does come out of his unconscious state, he's going to be a wreck. You know, because he's just going to be intoxicated in this ecstatic swoon of like, I'm going to meet Radharani. And Subhadra's just a young girl, you know, there's just nobody, they're both like kind of vulnerable and not very, you know, I'm worried about them basically. So then Balaram says, all right, I'll go because I need to protect my sister. So I'll go in the front and Subhadra will go behind, and we'll go first. And then, you know, as soon as we get to Vraj, I'll step aside and let Subhadra do the talking, and then Krishna can come later. So Subhadra's like, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. So we'll just tell everybody, because they're going to need time to, you know, get all prettied up and everything. So we'll just tell them that Krishna's coming. He's on his way. He just got stopped on the road because, you know, different kings and devotees want to see him and offer things to him, as, you know, as happens, as typical. It's like, you know, if you're a famous person, you can't walk from point A to point B without getting stopped. A million people talking to you and you get delayed. So they'll understand that, you know, Krishna, he's like, everyone's going to want. So that was the plan. So then, so Narada Muni goes there, and so the two of them set off. Balaram and Subhadra set off, and then Narada Muni, he waits a bit, and when they're kind of like gone, they're kind of out of sight, then he goes and he plays his veena, he plays the sing songs about Radha and Krishna and Braj. And then Krishna comes to his senses, and he's just as they thought, he's like ecstatic, and he's trembling all over, and with great difficulty, Narada and Uddhava are lifting on the chariot. So they had the chariot. Yeah, I forgot to mention that part. So they brought the chariots. They brought Krishna's personal chariot, Daruka, the chariot that he always used in Dwarka. So that chariot, and they brought Balaram's chariot, and they got a new chariot for Subhadra. So the two of them went on their chariots, and now Krishna's chariot is there. Daruka's waiting, and so Krishna's trembling as they're trying to put him on the chariot. And this is exactly what happens when in Puri at Rath Yatra, when there's a certain group of, is it the Sabaras that bring him? Anyways, so there's a group of people that their service is to lift the deity and carry him and put him on the chariot, and he's always shaking, right? It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the body of the deity is shaking. So the same thing, Krishna's shaking, they're trying to put him on the chariot. With great difficulty, they put him on the chariot, and then they go. Okay, so now they're all on the way. Balaram, Subhadra in front, and Krishna trailing behind. So now, let me see, miss anything here. Okay, so what happens is that Balaram and Subhadra, they arrive in Braj, and they're thinking that everything's going to be okay. They're just going to go talk to people. They're going to make the announcement. But when they get to Braj and they see the Brajvasis, and they see their condition, which is due to intense, ecstatic love for Krishna, they become overwhelmed. They've never seen love like that. They've never experienced intensity of Krishna prema as they were witnessing there with the Brajvasis. And so the love of the Brajvasis affects them in such a way as that it brings up their own ecstatic love for Krishna like 10 times more than they're used to feeling. And then they just, they become stunned. They basically, same thing happens. They see their eyes get big and their smiles get big, and their limbs go inside their bodies. And then they're just there, and they're Baladev and Subhadra, like, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra deity forms like that. And they're standing there, and they can't really function. So they never get the chance to really make the announcement. They're just kind of stuck there. All right, so then time's passing, and Krishna's chariot comes, Krishna arrives, and he, but all the villagers have, like, they notice that these two unusual forms there, and so they're kind of gathering around talking like, what's going on? And anyway, so Srimati Radharani is there, but Srimati Radharani is just like totally almost unconscious. She's lying on the ground, all pale, and she's got her head in the lap of Lalita, her best friend, and who's a little older than her, who takes care of her, who she sees as her Shiksha guru. And so Lalita is, stroking her face and putting wet fragrant cloth on her head and just trying to keep her alive. And Radharani is just like lying there and delirious, going, Krishna, Krishna, like that. And so Krishna shows up, and he knows where Srimati Radharani is, and he goes to that place. But as soon as he sees her, then his eyes become big, and his smile becomes big, and his arms go in, and then he turns into like this, Jagannath form, and he just faints in that form. So now he's lying on the ground, like a log, stunned, and not able to speak or do anything. And Radharani's lying there also, but at least Radharani's conscious, but she's barely conscious. And Lalita's there, so Lalita sees Krishna, and she's just like, Radha, Krishna, right? So she's like, all right, I need to do something. So Lalita, she's a very strong person. She doesn't, she can, control her emotions, because she needs to, take care of Radharani and not get upset when things like this happen. So she knows what to do. She's very intelligent. So she gets a fan, and she fans Radharani in such a way that the fragrance of she fans First she's fanning Krishna, because she's thinking, I need to revive Krishna, so she's fanning him, but she's fanning him in such a way that the fragrance of Krishna's body, so now he's in this Jagannath log-like form, fragrance of his body goes over to Radharani. So when Radharani smells the fragrance of Krishna's body, she immediately recognizes this is Krishna. And then she sits up, and she gets all, full of eagerness and anticipation that Krishna is here. But then she looks over and she sees that Krishna is just unconscious and he's just lying there in that log-like form. She's never seen him like that, like in that Jagannath form. So this is Radharani's first darshan of Lord Jagannath, Krishna in the form of Lord Jagannath. And it's something like very exceptional, and she's just like, what is this? But Lalita takes action. She knows what to do. So similarly, she fans Radharani, because Radharani's like, what's going on? And she's like fanning her, but she's fanning her in such a way that her fragrance of her transcendental body is going over to Jagannath, Krishna, who's lying there. And at the same time, Vishaka's there also, and she's going in Krishna's ear and she's singing, Radha, Radha. She's singing Radharani's name in his ear, and then Krishna's smelling the fragrance of Radharani's body. And then all of a sudden, Krishna just sits up. He just sits bolt upright, and then their eyes meet, and then all of his body just melts into his soft, Krishna form with his two arms and his two legs and everything, the way Radharani knows him. And then they just gaze in each other's eyes, and then Radharani says, Krishna, I just woke up from this terrible dream. And Krishna said, oh, my love, what dream was that? She said, I dreamed that you went away for a very long time, that you were in Mathura and you were in Dwarka, and people were telling me about all the things you were doing and killing demons and becoming a king and marrying queens and all these things. Oh my God, what a nightmare. She's like, I'm glad it was just a dream, and I'm so glad that I'm awake, and I'm so glad that we're here together and that we've been together forever. I couldn't imagine us ever being separated, could you? Krishna's like, no, thank God we were never separated. Like that. So then by that time the Brajavasis are all there, and they take the two of them and they put them on this beautiful Singhasana, beautiful decorated throne, and then they offer arti to the divine couple, and it's like an ecstatic, arti, Radha Krishna arti. And so Krishna, he offers a benediction to Srimati Radharani, and she says, let that form that I saw, that ecstatic form with the big eyes and the big smile, like a log lying there, let it be eternally manifest. And then Krishna said, yes, and because Balaram and Subhadra brought me, and because they exhibited, they manifest similar forms, that their forms will be eternally manifest also, and that we will be worshipped together in this form. And then he says that because we were all stunned like wood, and our bodies became hard and immobile like logs of wood, we will be carved from logs of wood. And because we are all floating in the ocean of Vraj Prem, of Radha Prem, then we will appear in the ocean. We'll come floating in the ocean like that. And because we came back to Vraj on chariots, one on each of our chariots, Baladev, Subhadra, and me in the back, then we are going to reenact this pastime. This is going to be an annual pastime that we reenact, and everyone is going to be able to see us in these transcendental forms. So now the second request of Narada Muni was fulfilled, because now they're going to do this Rath Yatra every year. And then Srimati Radharani was very pleased with this, and she said, okay, so you and your brother and your sister are going to have this pastime and exhibit these forms. You've all manifested your forms in intense separation from Vraj and from me. But what about my form in separation from you? Can I also have a special form in which, this ecstatic form that looks not like me, that people can't identify me, in which I'm just like stunned in ecstasy and separation from you? And then Krishna said, yes, I will manifest that form when I come in my golden avatar as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. At that time, no one will recognize you as Srimati Radharani, but you will, in that form, you'll experience separation from me. So, yeah. So when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes, he exhibits that he expresses that mood, right? There's one prayer in which he says this. So this happens at Rath Yatra. So Rath Yatra is when Lord Chaitanya sees Jagannath, he sees him as Shyamasundar in Vrindavan. And when Jagannath sees Lord Chaitanya, he sees him as Srimati Radharani. So Jagannath is Krishna feeling separation from Radharani, and Lord Chaitanya is in the mood of Radharani feeling separation from Krishna. And that's why the intensity of the pastime of Lord Chaitanya seeing, that's why when Lord Chaitanya sees Jagannath, it's so intense. Right? When Lord Chaitanya first went to Puri after he left Navadvip, took Sanya, and when he went to Puri, as soon as he saw Lord Jagannath, he just fainted. He just fainted and he was lying there unconscious for a long time until someone, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, took him and took him to his house. Actually, the guards of the temple were like, who is this guy? He's just lying on the floor. They were going to beat him with sticks and throw him out. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, no. I can tell this is a great personality. Don't touch him. I'll take care of him. So he carried him to his house, and then Lord Chaitanya finally came to consciousness. So Lord Chaitanya fainted in the mood of Srimati Radharani, feeling separation from Krishna. And then later, during the Ratha Yatra, so Lord Chaitanya is dancing in ecstasy in front of the Rath car, and he's exhibiting all these amazing, like, ecstatic transformations of the body. And he starts singing this stanza of a song. And this is actually like, it's not a devotional song. It's like some, Karmi pop song of the day. And so the translation is this. This is just like a love song, like a romance song. It says, that very personality who stole away my heart during my youth is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights of the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there, and the same sweet breezes are blowing for the Kandamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover, yet my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go to that place on the bank of the Reva, under the Vetasi tree. That is my desire. So this is just a love song about, a man who's remembering his beloved, and they're separated, and they're in a place, and it's not the right place. But, of course, this is, Lord Chaitanya is remembering because Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, so he's remembering, he's Krishna in the mood of Srimati Radharani. So in the mood of Radha, he's remembering how we met at Kurukshetra, but it was the wrong place. And so the pastime of Ratha Yatra is the Brajvasis, headed by Srimati Radharani, who's in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at least her mood, pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan. Krishna and Balaram and Subhadra pulling them back to Vrindavan. So Lord Chaitanya is thinking, I need Krishna to be in Vrindavan, because Radharani is like, Krishna outside of Vrindavan is not the Krishna that I'm going to be able to have the pinnacle of pastimes with. So, but people heard Lord Chaitanya reciting this, pop song, and they were just like, what is he saying? This is just so, it would be like as if, Ashram Maharaj was at LA Ratha Yatra and just started singing some, like, whatever, just some, I don't know.
Down so low.
Yeah, just some, like, Karmi pop song that everyone knew from the radio back in the 70s or something, right? And everyone's like, what is this? So, yeah. So no one understood. Everyone was kind of confused, like, why is Lord Chaitanya saying this? But then a few intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya understood. One was Swarup Damodar, and another one was Rupa Goswami. So Rupa Goswami, he heard that, and he composed a verse that was explaining the meaning of that song. And so this verse is spoken by Srimati Radharani to Krishna. My dear friend, now I've met my... No, she's speaking to a friend, like Lalita or someone. Now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I am the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant, but still I would like to go to the bank of the Yamuna, beneath the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing the fifth note within the forest of Vrindavan. So we were just hearing about these intimate exchanges, and Krishna playing his flute, playing the fifth note. And so, Lord Chaitanya, so Rupa Goswami composed that verse, and in those days they would just write like with an ink pen on bamboo leaves. They didn't have paper, they didn't write on dried bamboo leaves. So Rupa Goswami, he wrote that, and he was living in this thatched hut, with a straw thatched roof, and he just stuck it in the roof like that. And then he went somewhere, and Lord Chaitanya came to see him, and then Lord Chaitanya, Rupa Goswami wasn't there, so he was just waiting there for him to come back, and then he's like, what's that thing sticking in the straw? So he pulled it out, and he read it, and he got very ecstatic that he was amazed that Rupa Goswami could understand his mind and understood, he knows that I'm in the mood of Srimati Radha. He understands why I was saying that verse and why I was dancing so ecstatically and what the whole meaning of Ratha Yatra is. Like, he got it. And so when Rupa Goswami came back, then he was so pleased. And that's why we say Sri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam, which means that Sri Chaitanya Mano Avishtam, that Rupa Goswami, that prayer is glorifying Rupa Goswami, that he knows the desire within the mind of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so when we say that prayer, we're praying, when will Rupa Goswami, who knows the mind and the heart of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when will he bestow his mercy upon me? Okay? So, yeah. So thanks to Rupa Goswami, we know the internal meaning of these songs and of Ratha Yatra. And of course that knowledge has been passed down through our acharyas, from Rupa Goswami and 6 Goswamis, through our acharyas and through Srila Prabhupada, who explained all of this, and Krishna's Kaviraj, who wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita and explains the whole thing. So this is such high, confidential, intimate topics between Radha and Krishna. And this Ratha Yatra festival that we'll be celebrating next weekend here in LA it's a beautiful festival, because the Lord is coming out, he's giving us darshan, he's just there's the holy name is being distributed, books are being distributed, prasadam is being distributed. There's so much mercy, right? Jagannath is this form of the Lord that is just so merciful, so generous. People who don't go to the temple, Lord Chaitanya goes to see them. He's like, they won't come to see me? Fine, I'll go to see them. So that's the Lord's mood. He's like outreach, the original outreach program, right? Lord Chaitanya reaching out and going out to the people. And in the same way that in that first Ratha Yatra, when those 3 chariots were going from, where Dantavakra was killed there at the gates of Mathura to Vrindavan, how they all cooperated together. They sat down and they made a strategy, Narada Muni and Uddhava and Balaram and Subhadra, and they cooperated to make it happen, to make these 3 on the chariots go to Vrindavan. So in the same way, coming up to Ratha Yatra, and probably the preparations have been going on for months already. So this big festival, so many devotees are cooperating together and making the carts and doing the fundraising and preparing the feast, the menu, and getting all the boga, and who's going to lead kirtan, and the sound system, and the venues, and the stalls, and the books, and everything. So Krishna's, and this is Krishna consciousness, all the devotees cooperating together to fulfill the Lord's desire, and specifically in this case, the Lord's desire to return to Vrindavan, be reunited with the Vrajvasis, and that's ecstatic reunion with Srimati Radharani and Vraj. So some things that we can meditate on during Ratha Yatra, and by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, we have all these wonderful stories and explanations. So, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Shri Shri Ratha Yatra Maha Mahotsava ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any questions or reflections or anything? Yes, JC.
That was so amazing. Thank you so much. That was very beautiful. Just so nice to listen to. Where can we read all of this? Where do these stories come from?
Yeah. So it's kind of like I've pieced together things. So there's a lot in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan with Rohini and the gopis, and that's in Bhagavatam. And then Akrura coming and taking him to Mathura Dwarka, that's in Bhagavatam. Most of that's in first part's in Bhagavatam, building the city of Dwarka, and then him killing demons, killing Dantavakra, that's there in Bhagavatam. Krishna's return to Braj. That's not specifically stated in Bhagavatam, but it's in the Acharya's commentaries in that section. You read those commentaries, you can read about that. And about Lord Chaitanya, that's in all the parts that have to do with Lord Chaitanya, that's there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And the pastime of Indradumna Maharaj, King Indradumna, and Nila Madhava deity, I can't remember where that's from. You know that? Where's that from?
She's read on different sources on the internet. I don't know if there's a particular book.
It's definitely there if it's in a book, but I just, I've heard it.
That's in a Jagannath book.
Didn't,
Jagannath Priyanatikam?
yeah,
Yeah,
Jagannath
it's a
Priya,
Yeah.
and that's Ramananda, right?
It was written by, yeah, okay, so that was written by Ramananda Rai.
I think.
Yeah. There's definitely like a
Yeah,
scripture
it's in there.
where that story is narrated. And yeah, so Tama Krishna House wrote his book based on that book. And so it is an authorized story. Yeah.
Narayan Maharaj has a book about Rath Yatra that tells almost as much as you just told. So
Oh, I also got a lot from Gaur Govinda Maharaj's book. Gaur Govinda Maharaj wrote a book called 3 Logs of Wood. And he goes into a lot of the emotions, like all the emotional detail and how, you know, yeah, a lot of what that thing about Subhaja standing guard outside the door and the 2 brothers coming and then exhibiting the forms and Narada Muni coming, and then later about the chariots, and then Subhaja saying I'll go and Balaram saying no, I'll protect you, and all that. That's all, and Krishna them getting there and exhibiting again their Jagannath Balaji Subhaja forms when they're seeing the Brajavasi. That's all in 3 Logs of Wood. Yeah, so you can look up that book. Yes.
That story is also in the Gaur Govind Swami Maharaj book, The Embankment of Separation.
Oh yeah, it's
The
also
story
there.
is in there.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, no. Yeah, it's there.
That's
yeah.
the book name, and
That's
this is a chapter.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So that's yeah. So the book's name is Embankment of
Yeah,
Separation,
Separation.
and there's a chapter called 3 Logs of Wood towards the end of that book. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the book. I've read that book twice. That book's amazing. I highly recommend Embankment of Separation because it explains all these emotions that Radha and Krishna experience in separation from each other and from Vrindavan.
I think we'd all be enthused to read this in a future book of yours, the way you strung it together. Evil!
I've never seen, like, no one has strung it together like this.
So please do.
I kind of sat down one day and I read all the pastimes of Jagannath and Rath Yatra that I've heard like over decades, and I was just like, these all have to be connected to each other. And as soon as I started thinking these all have to be connected to each other, all of a sudden Krishna just started showing me all the connections, you know, and I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. I have to like speak about this. So yeah, I gave this lecture once before in Toronto, just the day of Toronto Rath Yatra in the morning there in the temple room, and devotees were like, and I had just finished doing the last piece of research. I had just read Embankment of Separation, that chapter, the night before, and I was like so overwhelmed with the whole thing that when I was presenting it, like all those emotions were like very fresh, and like devotees were crying. Like there was one girl, they were like crying, and there's one girl, she was like, I cried like 3 or 4 different times during that, and I was even choking up myself. It was just, and because Rath Yatra was like that day, I don't know, it's just like a very intense experience the first time I told this, but yeah, it's beautiful. Yes, Guru.
Sometimes we hear stories of devotees about how a particular incarnation of God, like Nrsimha did, many stories,
Yeah.
how they came to, how they manifest, how the Lord manifests in them. Is there any story nowadays that some devotees might know that Lord Jagannath came and sometimes, you know, like, how do you say, like a mystical, a miracle, and something happened that makes a big difference in their life now, like a revelation? Does
Like
anybody knows?
Like in devotees' lives, like nowadays devotees?
Yeah, nowadays, because sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
you hear stories a long time ago, but I'm
Yeah.
interested to hear now.
Yeah.
Is there anyone?
There's a book actually that was written by Pankajangri Prabhu. It's called Lord Jagannath in Rajpur. Yeah, I have that book. That book is available. You can get it easily in Mayapur, and I think probably other places too nowadays. Lord Jagannath in Rajpur. So in Mayapur, Navadvip Dham, so there's Mayapur. Have you been to Jagannath Temple near Mayapur? Yeah, so that temple, there's a Jagannath Bali Subhaja that are very ancient and have a very rich and ancient history to them. And so many miracles happened with those deities. And so, and even when the deities came to ISKCON, and this is just in the past, like, you know, recent ISKCON history, like within, you know, last 20 years or so, when they first installed when the ISKCON got that temple and they started fixing the temple and ISKCON devotees started going and worshiping the deities, that many miracles happened. You know, that people who were blind were getting eyesight, and you know, people were that the deities were like talking to the pujaris and telling them things like, you know, these builders are stealing the building materials for the temple, and go to that guy's house and you're going to find it, and they would go to that guy's house and found it. And then there was another story about how the deity.
They wanted Radhamadava's boga.
Yeah.
They got jealous when
Yeah.
they saw Radhamadava's plates of boga.
Yeah, so they yeah, there was a devotee who was, they were cooking, they were just offering them simple things because it was just basically like one brahmachari or something, and then that pujari had a dream that the deities were like that they had jumped off the altar and they were running through the fields on the way to ISKCON Mayapur. And then he woke up and he went to worship the deities, and he saw that things were a little bit out of place, and there was like a piece of cloth, like of Jagannath's, you know, clothes that was like ripped. And then later he found a piece in the field, that piece that had ripped off. It was like in the field there on the way to Mayapur. And so he was like, what is going on? And then the deities, then later he had a dream, and they were saying that, yeah, you know, it is ISKCON, the Radhamadava are getting such nice offerings there, whole Rajbhog, so many preparations. All you're giving us is some simple thing here. We're going there to eat. So then that brahmachari, he told the you know, temple management about his dream, and then they said, okay, we're going to cook extra, and you come every day. And so he had this big tiffin, you know, those like multi-level stainless steel tiffin things. So he would go there with the tiffin, and then they would put all the preps there that Radhamadava were getting offered, and he would put that on his bicycle, go by bicycle back to Rajpur, and then like put it all in Jagannath's plates and offer. So like that. And yeah, so many things. There's a whole book full of pastimes. So yeah, Lord Jagannath is still active and dynamic and doing amazing things in devotees' lives. Yes.
I was just thinking, remember, those of us who aren't getting close to 30 might not know, but when we got that temple, it was just a mud hut. And I think it had been buried for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah.
And when I first time I went to Mayapur was 1980, and we went out to Rajpur to Lord Jagannath's temple, and it was a mud hut.
Mm.
And so the temple that's been built there is just such a wonderful, I don't know, it's just a wonderful thing. I remember when my older daughter went to Mayapur in 1996. In 1996, she went to Mayapur and Vrindavan, and she came back. She told me, when I retire, I would like to retire to one of two places, Ekachakra or Rajpur.
Mm.
It's just such a mood there. It's just so
Yeah.
sweet.
Very sweet. It's like a family. You go out there and you can just relax, you know? It doesn't have like this stiff, like, you know, temple formal mood to it. It's just like, you just go there and just like hang out, you know, Jagannath Vaisraja there, and just like so gracious, and you can just, yeah, we go there and you just grab the mic and you just get mridanga and you just start singing, and right? And they'll come and give you prasadam, and you go and you can roam around the fields there and through the gardens, and yeah, it's a beautiful place, very peaceful. All right, should we wrap it up here? Okay, thank you all for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada Priya ki jai. Well, that concludes day 2 of our wonderful Krishna House grand opening retreat. Thank you all for being here. And thanks to those who were here earlier but had to go to other engagements. It's been really wonderful today. We started with nice Mangalarti, we chanted japa together, we heard a class from Ashram Maharaj about the 5 potent practices of bhakti, we delved deep into our remembrance of Vrindavan at the Botanical Gardens with Prabhupada Priya. We chanted wonderful bhajans together, honored prasadam along the way, had kirtan,
heard about Mahaprabhu in Vrindavan and finished with Rath Yatra. Would you consider that a success? Best way to spend Ekadashi. Yeah, it's been a really great 14 hours having all of you here. And we're not done yet. We still have a morning program tomorrow, which will be really wonderful. We'll start with Mangalarti at 6 o'clock, chant together, and then around 8 o'clock we'll hear from Ashram Maharaj and Prabhupada Priya Prabhu. They'll give their concluding talk for the retreat. They'll try and synthesize some of the themes that have been covered over yesterday and today into a really wonderful, cohesive, and encouraging message for us all as we're building this small little community together. And yeah, so thank you so much for being here. It's been really wonderful. That's the schedule for tomorrow. As a reminder, prasadam is not cheap, and for this retreat it's all donation based. So you know, if for some reason you can't contribute, you can let us know and we'll make sure you go home with some prasadam. But we do ask for a suggested donation of $10 per meal or $30 for the entire retreat. So really appreciate those who have given so far, or given service through cooking. And yeah, please come take prasadam. You're welcome to take prasadam out here or inside, whatever you like, but the prasadam will be served inside and you can just find a spot to sit. All right, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I don't like that. Thank you. I'm so sorry, Nita.